Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Luke Fickell, the Wisconsin Badgers, kicking off spring practice in the month of March. They'll want to get into a few storylines and questions that we're going to be following as Wisconsin plays out their spring ball. Year 2 under Luke Fickell. This is normally when he digs his teeth into a program. I think you can just expect a lot of improvement heading into 2024. Want to get into some storylines. Before we do, as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. A massive shout out to the Wisconsin fans. This is a program we covered a lot when they were making some noise in the transfer portal, and the unit that I think we're really excited about heading into 2024. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And more importantly, would love to hear from you guys in the comment section, whether it's some answers to some of the questions we're talking about, whether it's your own questions. Would love to hear from you guys. We always learn a ton from you guys. Love talking ball with you guys. And Dill, without further ado, I'm going to tee you up here. Wisconsin, Luke Fickell, year 2. How are we feeling?
I think obviously, I think the most exciting part about what's happening is, can they get this offense going in the way you kind of think when you think of a Phil Longo offense, where you're spreading the ball around, you're completing a lot of passes, you're hitting deep plays. Last year, you dealt with the growing pains. And again, I think a lot of people were optimistic. You thought you brought in a guy in Tanner Mordecai who, again, when you know you're dealing with a regime change the way they were doing it with moving from Paul Chryst to Phil Longo, you knew there were going to be some change, but you maybe thought you had a quarterback who could kind of guide you through it. And just given his health, given some of the play, I think, and inconsistencies, that just really didn't work out last year. You bring in Tyler Van Dyke. That is the exciting part about what you're heading into, is you have a hyper talented player. If Phil Longo can do what he's done with other quarterbacks in the past, and like you've seen how much better certain quarterbacks have gotten under his tutelage. I mean, Van Dyke has everything you want as a quarterback.
Everything you want in specifically this Phil Longo offense, right? Take a look at Phil Longo, what he wants to do, what quarterbacks have been successful under him. It's been the quarterbacks that have the strong arms that can rip it all around the yard. Tanner Mordecai had the production coming from SMU, did not have that NFL caliber arm. Tyler Van Dyke, yes, there are some ugly reps on his film from the last couple of years at Miami. You can't question what he brings from an arm talent standpoint coming to this Wisconsin offense. And Dill, the thing I'm focusing most on is, can this team push the ball down the field a little bit more in 2024? 6.1 yards per pass attempt. That was 117th in the country. Tanner Mordecai only attempting 31% of his passes, 10+ yards on the field. I don't think Tanner Mordecai quite had the arm to do it. Obviously, battling some injuries certainly didn't help. What I'm most excited for is Tyler Van Dyke. That dude has a howitzer. He can push it down the field. I think he can open up this Wisconsin offense a little bit from an arm talent standpoint. And you talk about all the talent that he's going to have around him to work with. That's what really gets me excited about this passing attack, taking that step heading into next year.
Because if you can keep him on rhythm and keep like some space in the offense to work with, he's been really good. The issues kind of come when he has to hold the ball too long, when guys can't get open. Again, you kind of you have a couple guys like Will Pauling and Bryson Green who are they're good at that. They can kind of do what Josh Downs did, I feel like, at UNC, where he was always open. Ball could come out really on time. When Phil Longo's offense operates like that, it looks really good. And frankly, when Tyler Van Dyke plays in that type of world where the ball's coming out quickly, he's been really good. So again, if they can get the ball down the field a little more, create a little more space, and allow the offense to have a little more rhythm than what it had last year in Wisconsin, I mean, that suits Van Dyke. That's how Phil Longo wants it to look. That, I think, is what you're kind of looking for.
Another thing I'm most excited, we talked about growing pains. We talked about growing pains a lot with this Wisconsin team, going from Paul Chryst to Phil Longo. The extra 15 bowl practices, did we maybe smooth out some of those growing pains? Because they go out and play LSU and absolutely light it up from an offensive perspective. That's what excites me the most. Dill, you started shouting out some wide receivers. One, I want to highlight a little bit more than you did. Will Pauling, I think, is an absolute dude. You mentioned it best. Josh Downs in that offense. Phenomenal play towards the back half of the season for Will Pauling. Bryson Green, extremely solid. I'm looking at CJ Williams going into year 3. There were some high expectations, but I feel like people forgot he's only going into year 2 of his college football career. And Dill, I'm going to shout out my guy that I think you texted me about the other day, Trek Kukahana, as the guy that you talk about having some speed that can work vertically. This dude has absolute burners coming from Bishop Gorman. I am really excited about not only Tyler Van Dyke, but what he has around him at the wide receiver room.
I mean, that's kind of like you wonder if the wideouts can eat a little more. And again, you kind of saw Pauling and Green, they were the two main guys, and they kind of fit more what Mordecai wanted to do, where he didn't have the arm strength to really push it. You can maybe think, can you get Trek Hekahuna more involved when you have a quarterback and get the ball down the field a little better? Same with CJ Williams, a guy who does like to work a little more vertically. I think you saw him work that way in the bowl game. Obviously, dropped one of the passes. You don't want to see that. But that's kind of his game. You want him to be able to work that deeper part of the field. At the end of the day, they weren't ever going to really be able to light that part up with Tanner Mordecai and his skill set. I mean, again, Van Dyke's got it all. I think every wide receiver should touch it. And frankly, I also am excited to see what Jackson McGowan can do at tight end, because they did not have anything at that spot last year.
I've heard some buzz around him. I know a lot of Wisconsin fans are excited. I'll throw myself into that ring as being excited for him as well. Next question I think we want to see answered during spring practice is the offensive line depth, but more importantly, the development. Now, Phil Longo, again, developmental coach. This is a guy that doesn't come into a program and in 6 months kind of turns everything around. I'm really excited to see the development going into year 2. He always thrived at developing those guys along the line of scrimmage at Cincinnati. I know you've been spending a lot of time watching some back of that Wisconsin offensive line in 2023. I'll give you the T-box here. Thoughts on this offensive line heading into 2024 here?
I think you're very comfortable with what you have at tackle. I thought Jack Nelson, the way he played last year, is the way you've kind of been looking for him to play for a handful of years now. Riley Mullman's developing into a guy who I think is very much an NFL player, really good athlete. And he was the one guy who I really felt like consistently was moving guys. And that, to me, like just being able to get guys off the line of scrimmage, that's what you're looking for. So many negative plays, I felt like. And a lot of plays where, again, it was very reliant on Braylon Allen making something happen, like making some magic, dealing with guys in the backfield. Can't have any more of that. Need to reset the line of scrimmage. And you kind of said it right. Like Luke Fickell's been a really good developer on both sides of the line of scrimmage. If they can make that happen, I think this offense is talented enough in terms of what they have at quarterback, in the pass catch room, and even the running back room, adding Tawi Walker and getting Malusi back. They should be really good. I think they will go as far as this offensive line can take them, if they especially can get a little more physical in the middle.
I'll throw out one more guy on the offensive line, being the recruiting nerd that I am. Kevin Haywood. They're coming in as one of the top offensive tackles in that 2024 class, measured in at the Under Armour All-American game with 35-inch arms, 300 pounds. You talk about being ready, and it's rare, right? It's rare to play as a true freshman in the Big Ten on the line of scrimmage. Then Kevin Haywood's a rare dude. And so you talk about maybe having some question marks at depth for this Wisconsin offensive line. I think Kevin Haywood injects himself into at least a rotational role on this Wisconsin offensive line heading in to that 2024 season. And I think Tawi Walker fits exactly what Wisconsin wants to do running the football. And I think a genius move, right? Ches Malusi, there ain't going to be a bigger fan of Ches Malusi than I am. I am hoping that he gets back from that injury, has a phenomenal year. We saw the flashes last year, but bringing in Tawi Walker, I think makes you comfortable. You have a true freshman, and Dylan Jones, another guy coming from good counsel that I really like. Moving over to the defensive side of the football, and I think what I'm most excited for, and again, probably a question mark that I throw in too for this Wisconsin team, is this pass rush unit, Dale. And I'm going to shout out a transfer first here with John Pius coming in from William and Mary. Now, the question mark you have with John Pius is not the production he had at the FCS level, had over 11 sacks in 2023, had a 20% pass rush win rate. My question is, can he make that jump to the Power 5 level? I went back and looked at what he did against Virginia, the only Power 5 team Williams and Mary played last year, 3 sacks. So I feel good about the Power 5 jump. Dill, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Nick Herbig in terms of maybe a little bit of a smaller edge rusher, but really challenges tackles with the juice, the athleticism, the burst off the line of scrimmage, running that arc. I am extremely excited about John Pius heading into 2024.
And I like how you pair that up with Darrell Peterson, who's kind of like the opposite, a little bit more of a physical pass rusher, really stout against the run, does a good job working on the inside. They needed somebody to replace kind of what Gertz was giving them in that edge rush. I think you almost hope John Pius takes that unit up a little bit, plays more like an NFL player, more of a draft pick type role. That'd be huge for them, because they just didn't generate a whole lot of pressure from that defensive line unless they were manufacturing with blitzes and other sorts of stunts. They need to be able to, I think, work out of that base look and get pressure with that that defensive
I
line.
agree. You mentioned it too. Like, I think Wisconsin was awfully reliant on sending backers, sending safeties to manufacture that pressure. It'd take a lot of stress off that defense if you can win with some of your front four guys. John Piastero Peterson. I'd probably give a shout out to James Thompson Jr. too, who I thought played some really good football for Wisconsin. I'm going to sound like a little bit of a nerd here, Dale. The unit that I'm most excited for, right? You can go to the wide receiver room. You can go to the quarterback room. Give me the linebacker room, right? This is a linebacker room that I am extremely excited for. You look at how you want a position group to look heading into a spring practice. You have like your high floor guys, right? A guy like Jake Chaney, a guy like Jaheim Thomas, who have played a lot of football at the Power 5 level. I mean, Jaheim Thomas playing at Cincinnati under Luke Fickell was phenomenal. Goes to Arkansas, 90-plus tackles in the SEC last year. Chaney played some really good football. You know what you have with those two guys. I'll say this. If Tackett Curtis trots out there as a linebacker one heading into 2024, you know he's put it together. This is a guy that at USC, I mean, had some massive growing pains. There's no question about it. A lot of missed tackles, bad run fits, overrunning plays. But from a physical trait standpoint, has everything that you want in terms of an all-American caliber linebacker. If it clicks between the ears, I mean, Tackett Curtis is a guy that I am extraordinarily excited for heading into that 2024 year.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think that linebacker room looks really good. I even think they rounded out pretty nicely with Leon Lowry, a guy who he's more of that guy you can manufacture pressure with, plays sort of that hybrid edge rush linebacker role. And that's a unit or a position that I think they did get a lot from. And I don't necessarily think it's like a bad, like if you can blitz well and you can get after teams, that's a good thing in its own right. Again, you want to be able to be a little more consistent up front, but having guys like Leon Lowry to be able to blitz, Jake Chaney, I think is a very good guy getting pressure from that linebacker spot. I think those two, especially, you've seen a lot of it. I think that's still going to be a big part of this defense because that's what Trust likes to do. And I mean, it's part of it. I think that's not going to go anywhere. And adding Leon Lowry into that room, I think does give you that skill set that you kind of need to run Trust's way.
Going back to the last position group I want to talk about is the secondary, which was phenomenal for Wisconsin in 2023. I want to shout out another transfer here. And I think a lot of Wisconsin fans are familiar with some of the guys coming back, maybe not so much with some of the guys in the portal. RJ Delancey, coming from Toledo, a lot of talk going to Quinion Mitchell, getting it done at the NFL Combine and the Senior Bowl, a Toledo cornerback that's probably going to go in the first round. Well, on the opposite side, they had another stud cornerback, and that's name was RJ Delancey, a guy that faced 24 targets at Toledo, only gave up 9 catches, a 37% completion percentage. If you're trusting the development that you got from Quinion Mitchell and what he's showing at the Senior Bowl, a guy like RJ Delancey, I think, comes in and can play at an all-conference level at that cornerback spot heading into 2024 for the Badgers.
And that honestly was probably my one question was who's going to be the opposite corner to Ricardo Hallman, who obviously had a great year last year, looked really good against Marvin Harrison, I'd say. You probably wanted a little bit upgrade, at least some depth, if not now you kind of have your guy, I think, with Delancey. I think it was huge because you look at the safety room, this is one of the better rooms in the conference. I mean, Hunter Waller is
dog.
Turn on like Wisconsin football, you expect to see a line or a safety like him where he's just in the right spot constantly, really makes a ton of plays, really good against the run, gets his hands on balls. And then I think you shouldn't even ignore guys like Austin Brown, who in that nickel, big nickel, physical nickel, tackles really well. I mean, this safety room to me it's as good as it gets in the Big Ten. I throw Kamoy Latu in there too. I thought he looked awesome.
I would throw in one more guy, and it's a very similar conversation where you have some guys coming back that you kind of know give you the good floor. Mari Snowden at the cornerback spot going into year 2, a guy that I love coming out of high school. You look at this Wisconsin team, and I think what you're most excited about is you got a lot of position competition heading into spring ball, and you got a lot of veteran guys coming back. I mean, Wisconsin was 20th in returning production heading into 2024. I should say is 20th in returning production. But you also have some young guys that are going to be pushing some of these veterans coming back. This is how you want a depth chart to look like. I'm extremely excited to hear how these position battles play out. We'll continue to monitor them as spring practice plays out. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.